everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elisa. If you've been here before, you already know that. I'm creating my dream wardrobe from scratch and I'm taking you along for the ride so maybe you can recreate some of the pieces that I make at home. I've just come back from the longest change of year break and I had a fabulous time. I spent a lot of time with family and friends and I really didn't do anything social media related except for doom scrolling because who doesn't do that? But I had a really good recharge and I hope you didn't miss me too much. I didn't upload anything for a whole month. However, everything was fine and nothing, died. Everything's all right. My videos still performed the way they used to, which I'm really happy about because this is the first time I've taken such a long break. And now I'm ready for the new year. I'm super excited to come back and to start sewing again and do all of the things that I've been doing the whole of last year, which got us to, drumroll, 1,500 subscribers. Thank you so much. If you're one of them, if you're not one of them, come join us, it's fun. I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate it. I started this channel on a whim, to be honest. I didn't think that I would take it this far, but here we are and I really enjoy it. It's such a great adventure. But now I'm ready for this new year, whatever it may bring, and I'm ready for this video. So I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make a pajama set this week, but hold on, not any pajama set. I'm gonna make a daily sleeper inspired pajama set with a feather trim on the trousers. I saw this recently in the Sex and the City reboot, and just like that, Charlotte wore it when she was sitting on her bed, and this was actually featured on social media quite a lot. I've been following this brand for quite a long time already because I love their designs. They're actually a UK-based brand. They are in London and they make the most luxurious and beautiful pajama sets. Now, because I didn't want to copy what they do exactly, I went for a wrap design for the top that looks a little bit different than the button-up designs that they usually do. And as I said, I still added the feather trim, which I reluctantly did because I'm not quite sure about animal welfare here. However, it turned out so great, so I'm happy I did it. The fabric that I'm using is a baby blue checkered deadstock flannel that I ordered from a UK-based online shop called Fabric Godmother. I will link them below. If you're based in the UK, you should check them out. They have great fabrics. Right, so without further ado, let's jump straight in and I'm going to show you how I made this pajama set. So these are the PJ trousers that I'm going to trace. Ignore the stains. They're super comfy. They have a good length. And I'm also going to recreate the elastic waistband, so that's the goal.
I started by tracing the front of the trousers first. Make sure to fold the piece neatly and try to trace it as close to its true shape as you can. I first roughly traced by hand and then followed up with my pattern master for a cleaner look. After that, I traced the back in the same fashion. For the top I used an old wrap bodice block which I have used for previous projects. Check out the knit wrap dress tutorial that I made last fall for a guided pattern drafting lesson. After I cut out all of my pieces, I ended up with 4 panels for the PJ bottoms, so 2 front and 2 back pieces, 3 pieces for the top, so 1 back piece and 2 overlapping front pieces, as well as 2 sleeves. To assemble the bodice, I placed it on the floor like this and first pinned together the 2 shoulder seams.
I also got this new desk, which I'm so happy about. It's not something special at all, but it's so much bigger than the one I had previously. And I also got these clear storage boxes for all of my knick-knack, which is quite nice. So I have all kind of like additions and elastic threads and hooks and all of this stuff I've got in here. Then I have my box with all of my sewing threads, and then I have this box which holds all of my bands and tapes and bias tapes and elastics. So I feel quite organized. I'm starting the year in a very organized fashion. Okay, so I'm going to start with the top of the pajama set, and as per usual we're going to sew the shoulder seams first. I'm now going to immediately serge the shoulder seams. This is only recommended if you think that the piece will fit. If you're not sure,
it's probably better to insert the sleeves and close the side seams first, give it a try, and then serge after the fact. Up next, I'm gonna insert my sleeves. So these specific sleeves have a front and a back, and I nipped the seam allowance a little bit to know where the front is, making sure that the side that I chose to be the right side is facing outwards. Although this flannel doesn't really have a right or a wrong side, but anyhow. And now I'm gonna pin the sleeve in. So what I'll do is I first pin it on either end of the armhole. Then I'm going to determine the center point on the shoulder, nipping the seam allowance so I know where it is. And then I'm going to align this with the shoulder seam, making sure that I fold the seam allowance of the shoulder seam into the back piece. And then I place the needle here. Now I'm going to pin the sleeve in flat as closely to the shoulder seam as I see fit. And then with the rest, I'm gonna gather it. Now, if you don't want to have gathers in your shoulder, then you will have to make sure that the circumference of your shoulder curve on your sleeve is the exact same distance as the circumference of your armhole. Then you will have to pay attention to that in the pattern drafting process. Now, the shoulder looks good, the sleeve is pinned in, and I'm gonna give this a straight stitch. Sleeve is in, as you can see, has a bit of a volume here in the shoulder, which I like. And before I continue with the side seam, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so this is kind of how we are. The sleeves and armholes, the shoulder seams are closed. Now up next, we are going to close the side seams by simply turning the whole piece inside out, aligning front and back, and then sewing all the way from here down here. So now I'm simply going to sew from this point down the side seam, start again at this point and sew down the sleeve. Okay, this is closed, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just received the delivery of vegan nail polish, which I'm going to put on right now because this color is everything, and the feather trim. It doesn't look very promising, I have to say, so let's see. Okay. Will this work? Maybe. Possibly. I might look like a version of Santa Claus, but we will see. The first step to sewing the trousers together is by sewing the crotch seam in both front and back. Simply leave your pieces the way you cut them and sew down these curves.
Now that the center back and center front seams are sewn, we can open the trousers up like that. So this is the back. Now we grab the front. Now we place this on top of the back side. Grab the two pieces here in the crotch area. We're gonna grab them here, and we're gonna place the two center front and center back seams on top of each other like so. And this is the starting point of us closing the inner seam of the leg. And now we are going to start sewing from the center point, from this point, down one side, gonna finish that seam, and then start again at the center point and sew all the way down the other side and finish that seam. These must easily be the biggest trousers I've ever sewn. However, once we have the elastic waistband in and we shorten the legs, I think it's not going to look that crazy anymore. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to close the outer side seams, and yeah, that's the next step. And here we go. We have something that resembles trousers. Although they're massive, but that's all right. Oops! While they're massive, that's okay, because we're gonna add the elastic waistband on top, and it's PJs, and they're supposed to be super comfy, so I want them to be oversized. Now, the last thing I'm gonna do for today is I will serge those side seams, and then I will maybe add the elastic on top, because then everything that's left for me to do on the top and on the trousers is finishing touches. Did all of that in a day. Pretty neat. To create the tunnel, what you're going to do is you fold over the end of your waist by about 2.5-ish centimeters, and then you fold that over once again, so you have a total width here of 4 centimeters. You do that to create a scenario where you can insert an elastic, and then you continue to do that all the way around. Now the waistband is sewn. We have a little gap here so we can insert an elastic. Take the elastic and wrap it around your waist and make sure it sits comfortably with a little bit of wiggle room to sew it together. Now we need a safety pin that we are going to insert on one end of the elastic, and I'm going to fold this in half and then pierce it through like this just to make sure we can get through easily and the elastic doesn't like rip open and we lose the grip. Now we are simply inserting the elastic into the waistband and we will fill it through. I'm going to remove the security pin and I will sew the elastic together. Now the only thing we want to make sure is that it's not warped inside in some way, shape or form. So this is sewn together, pretty safe, so we have the square with the X in the middle. Now we can just let it jump into the trousers, and now we are going to close off this gap that we left open by simply putting some tension on it and sewing it closed like we did the rest earlier. Hi everyone, so I just came back from a beautiful Sunday walk. We had a very long walk around the river, which was amazing, and we had a nice Sunday roast, and now I'm going to continue sewing. I am currently wearing the bottoms. Let me show you. So here we have the pajama bottoms. I've got a lot of space in them, which is nice because I like being super comfy at night. So that's what they currently look like. Now I'm gonna finish those. Yesterday I actually went ahead and created my own bias tape. Oops. Which was way simpler than I thought. I'm gonna show you in a second how I did that. And I'm going to finish the length of the trousers now by first cutting them back because I want them to be like somewhat ankle length so I can attach the feathers and they flow around nicely, because if I have them long like this they're basically just gonna sweep the floors, which I don't want. So that's the first step. So the way to create this piping is simply by putting the nylon thread inside the binding and pushing it really to the outer corner of the bias tape, and then closing it by sewing as closely to this corner as you can. All right, so I just finished the first leg and it looks quite good, to be honest. So what I've done here is I've attached the piping to have this crisp edge, and I have a little bit of an overlap on the inside of the trousers, and this will later allow me to create some sort of buttoning system so I can attach the feathers. But first I will show you how I did this. The first step to creating the length, as I've just showed you, is to grab your pattern master or a measuring tape and measure from the length of your trousers, measure inwards by 5 centimeters and create a straight line. Boom, like that. Same thing on the other side. I will now go to my iron and fold this over like so and press this down. Okay, now I've pressed this. I'm gonna open it up so that the side seam is facing me. From here, I will grab my bias tape. I will simply open this up and place the bias tape in this crease here, where I will fold this overlap over it, just so it really, pushes the edge here so it stands against each other in a flush way. And then I will pin this in all the way around. As you might be able to see here, I've overlapped it so that it's looking like this and it's crossing each other. So when I sew this all the way around, you cannot see this end here, hopefully. Now that I've done this, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew all the way around the length of my trousers, and I'm going to do it foot width, which incidentally coincides with the width of my bias tape, in which with which I've created the piping. So you will be able to see in a second that it just is the perfect length for the piping to still show when we later unravel the whole thing. So the trousers are basically done, looking good, looking crisp, looking clean. Very happy about them. I will think about the feather trim at the very end of the project. First, I'm going to also add some finishing touches to the top of the pajama set. Now what I'm going to do first to get it done is I will simply serge the front corners of the wrap top and the whole length of it. The whole neck situation are gonna receive some bias tape finish as well. Receive some piping is what I'm trying to say. But I'm gonna do it a little bit differently than I did it with the trousers. So I'm basically grabbing my piping and I'm gonna place it onto the right side of my top. I will then sew it as close to the piping seam as possible. After that, I will then serge this corner, this edge, and I will flip it around so we have the piping showing on the outside, and on the inside we have a nice serged seam. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so this is how far along we are. I'm already obsessed. This is very comfortable. I'm gonna wear this all the time. I still need to finish up the top, obviously, and I've just tried this on because I wanted to have a think about what to do with the sleeves. They're obviously way too long and quite wide. Now, I just had the idea to obviously shorten them and then leave them this wide to have this kind of like, you know, mirror what's going on with the trousers. But I asked my boyfriend and he rightly pointed out that I could never have breakfast in this pajama with like such wide sleeves because they would constantly hang into the food. He's a very practical guy and he definitely has a point. So what I will do is I will stick to the original plan, which was to gather up the sleeves with an elastic and have a nice like puff bell sleeve situation. And that's what I'm gonna do. It's also the easier way, so I don't hate it. And obviously I will have to add some ties here and on the inside as well, so I can tie the whole thing up. And then we're actually finished with the pajama, and the only thing that's left to do is to attach the fluff on the bottom. So I have to think about how to do that. Okay, so to finish off the cuffs on the top, I decided to go for this like gathered little puff sleeve moment. And to achieve that, we are simply going to take the end of our sleeve, the cuff, serge it, which I've just done, as you can see here. I'm now going to overlap this serging seam just by about its own width to the inside of the piece, and I'm going to top stitch that down. So now that I've done that, I'm gonna pull it over once again by about 1.5 centimeters, and I'm gonna top stitch that down as well. Just as I did with the waistband on the trousers, I left a gap here. So we can now take an elastic. I measured this to fit comfortably around my wrist and then have some overlap so I can sew it closed later. I'm also gonna grab a safety pin, which I'm gonna insert into the elastic, and then I'm gonna fill it into this tunnel we've just created. So basically it's the exact same procedure as with the trousers. All right, so we're almost done with the top. I have these cute little buttons here from some leftover project, and I cannot remember what I bought those for, but they are perfect for this pajama. So I will grab these. I will need some more of my satin cord and a hand sewing needle. So I will sew the button to the inside of the end of the wrap top. So here, and I will then, on the according opposite side seam, place it so that the end here finishes off neatly, and then I will create a little tie here that I will hand sew down that is just big enough for this button to go through, so we have a neat little closing mechanism for our top. First up, sewing the button to the bodice.
Here you can see me add 6 snap buttons to each of my hems. I used bias tape to create a detachable feather trim to be able to wash the trousers when needed and keep the feathers intact. I basically created a circle from the bias tape that perfectly fit the circumference of the hem and made sure the snap buttons were in the right places to fit the ones on the trousers. I hand sewed the feather trim to that construction and voila, the project was finished.
Alright everybody, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it and I'm so glad that I'm back. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I'm really excited about, you know, whatever this is going to become, so I hope you will join us for the journey. Alright, see you next week.